Nazism, for instance. 1930s, that's possibly one can look at, right? So in Emmanuel's understanding, maybe the existing economic conditions might have led to the emergence of certain ideas, but the rise of Nazism, that is something cannot simply be linked to the existing economic conditions alone, right? So Nazism as an idea or as an ideology cannot be reduced to the existing economic conditions, and that's again is linked to the question which was asked earlier, that how a liberal democratic state or capitalist state would mean loss of freedom for an individual. So that is where again he would suggest that we cannot explain it in a causal manner, meaning that poor economic conditions or lower capitalist development is not to be causally related to the rise of fascism, but eventually it was due to the existing capitalist relations that Nazism or fascism had come into existence. And under Nazism or fascism, maybe in the name of collective ego, which would be emphasized either in the name of class or in the name of nation, but eventually individual freedom would be lost. So this had happened in the case of Germany or Italy, for instance, right? So in the name of the nation, individual freedom would be suppressed. Or this had happened in the case of France as well, right? So in the post-French Revolution, according to Emmanuel, that the whole idea of collective ego in the name of nation, individual's freedom would be suppressed, right? So then that's how one can look at the whole thing, right? So that's where possibly one can link as far as his critique of communism is concerned, and the way he understands that ideas too can have an autonomous existence, and they too can be instrumental in terms of influencing the changes which we see in human history in terms of its evolution or progress from one stage to another, right?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is there is a question from someone that how he looked the human nature and the state. So this issue we would discuss. This is a point which we are yet to discuss. So please have a little patience. This point we are going to discuss, right?
Sir, Sir, how did he separate ideas and economic advancement? Because economic advancement can't be made without you are having ideas. Ideas are the base of any advancement. So how can he separate ideas and economic advancement?
This again is linked to his whole conception of, or his whole idea of human freedom, right? Now I suggest let's wait for the next discussion, right? So that's where things would be more clear. But just to answer it very briefly, if we are trying to understand the thoughts of M.N. Roy, right? In his understanding, humans, they have made progress throughout their history by having control over the external environment, which is nature. So you control over the nature, and that is how you realize your freedom externally. That is one, right? And apart from that, there are other aspects in which freedom is to be linked. But in the process, science plays an important role, in terms of conquering the hurdles which nature poses to humans in terms of realization of his freedom. Now that is where matter is important, right? That is where the conditions which are external to human agency, that is important. Right? So, but again, right, the whole understanding about idea and, the way it can bring about changes and the way it is linked to the economic progress. So that is not simply to be seen in terms of the role of idea alone. Now, as I mentioned, during the course of my discussion, that, Emmanuel does understand that initially, or to start with, there may be conditions around which makes humans to think in a manner how they would overcome the hurdles that would be posed by the nature. So, one, matter is important. By matter here, I mean that the external conditions that may present itself before the humans, right? So that's what would condition as far as humans' existence is concerned. But at the same time, humans, they start developing their ideas in a direction where they would be in a position to conquer, or they would be in a position to have more control over the nature. And this is what something which would be important, for the realization of human freedom, right? So this is how, ideas and matters, they are linked, right? And again, by matter here, I mean that the economic conditions, how economic conditions, they undergo change. So there is a continuous interaction, and this is what he is emphasizing. And this is where he deviates from the orthodox understanding in Marxism that only economic forces of production determine the existence of humans. But, as you said, that, role of ideas too are important. But ideas, they acquire an autonomous status, and by pursuing those ideas, humans, they give direction to themselves in a manner where possibly they could have more control over nature, and this is how they can realize their freedom as well, right? But again, more would come when we would discuss the idea of freedom in Eamon Roy, right? Okay, but I think for now, is that bit clear that how in Emmanuel's thought we can kind of interlink the whole aspect of matter and idea, right? Matter and idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, any more questions? Okay. It's not clear. Voice is not clear. Okay, fine. Not an issue then. If you have any question, then please note them down. And again, when we reassemble tomorrow, then we can discuss that as well, right? Okay. In meanwhile, what I'm trying to do, I'm again trying to prepare the same kind of material in the form of PowerPoint, wherein you will find important issues that would be mentioned, and which perhaps you can look at in terms of developing your own notes and further developing your own ideas. Okay. Right, then we can conclude this class here, and we'll again meet tomorrow same time, huh? Okay. Right class then. Right class then. Thank you. Right class then. Thank you very much. We meet tomorrow again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I could not hear. Someone was saying something, huh? Please come back again. अभी कोई कुछ कह रहा था, हाँ?